All right, today we're going to be covering stocks and flows, ending by making and manipulating a simple population model. First off, what are they? A stock holds and a flow moves. An intuitive example would be to think of a stock as a bucket and a flow as a tap. The bucket holds water, the tap adds water. Now, how do we turn this image into a diagram? Well, we start by representing the bucket as a box, the standard for a stock. We then show the tap as an arrow moving into the box. This arrow is coming out of a cloud. All that means is that we don't know or care where the water is coming from. And back to the metaphor, we're not modeling the pipes this water is coming from, just that it pours out of the tap. So that's why a lot of things will be kept outside of the scope of the model and hidden off in that cloud. Now, together, this box and arrow is a representation of our bucket filling up. So let's add another outflow draining the stock. We'll hook up a flow. Imagine putting a faucet on your bucket, and it looks like this. The new outflow doesn't have a cloud on it since we know where the water is coming from. It's draining out of the bucket. Running this out, the bucket will either fill or drain based on the inflow and the outflow. If the inflow is larger, the bucket fills. Outflow larger, bucket drains. If they're equal, the water level in the bucket is kept in equilibrium and remains flat. So let's go over some properties of stocks and flows. Stocks by default have no limit. Your bucket is infinitely big. They also hold their value. Your bucket doesn't leak. And lastly, they only hold one type of thing. Your bucket can only hold water or oil, not both at the same time. This last point is why units matter so much when modeling. We want to make sure that we don't accidentally convert water into oil in any part of our model. Similarly, flows can only push one type of thing. They push this thing at a rate over time, and they're directional. Flows move things between stocks and only between stocks. If there's a cloud, that's really some other stock off screen that we aren't modeling. All right, but why model this? Where do these systems even pop up? A simple inflow, stock, outflow model can describe things like a bathtub or any reservoir, a population, or even your bank account. For those with some math experience, we've just visualized an exponential equation with the stock and the arrow, the one singular inflow. Taking the equation for compound interest, it'll simplify down to this really nice model. So you can see all the information is still there and you get the same result as the raw equation. Just replacing it with this diagram makes it so much easier to parse. Now, replacing one equation might be a little redundant, but with larger models, you can condense hundreds or thousands of equations into a very nice looking package. But first, back to basics. Let's build our first small stock and flow model, population.
All right, so today we're going to be building a simple population model. It looks just like this. So to begin, let's open up a new file. So file, new model, and we're going to get this pane here for model settings. The only thing that matters right now is going to be the time bounds. So since we're working in terms of population, the time unit we're going to go ahead and use is years. And we'll run it out for 100 years from 0 to 100. Or actually here. Just to show that it doesn't matter, we'll do 2025 as our year 0, and we'll run it out to 2125. So there we go. Click OK. And we have our new pane here. So we're going to go ahead and start building that structure by grabbing our stock tool here from the top. We're going to type out population. Next, we're going to go grab this arrow here for flows. We've got births and deaths. You just, to do a flow as well, you just click from one point to another, and you end up with the flow you need. Now, we don't need this extra one, so we're just going to delete it, including the cloud. Now, births and deaths are controlled by the size of the population, along with the birth rate and the death rate. So we're going to add these two up here as two variables. Now we just need to hook everything up. So grab your arrow tool and show that population is connected to births and birth rate is connected to births. Population is also connected to deaths and the death rate is connected to deaths. So let's go ahead and clean a few things up with the move tool. just pull on these little dots here just to make sure that our model looks nice and clean. Nothing is overlapping. And we're now going to go ahead and start filling out the equations. So birth rate. Well, birth rate's just a number. And when something is just a number, we call that dimensionless. So for this number, let's go ahead and decide on 0.05 for the birth rate. Now the death rate, similarly, is just a number. We're going to go ahead and up into units, put dimensionless. And we want to show the population growing, so we got to have the death rate a little lower. Let's set that as 0.02. Now we're going to go down here into population. Now population, the units of population are going to be people. It's auto-filled our equation with births minus deaths, which is correct, so we're going to leave it as is. But we're going to go down into initial value, and we're going to say that at the start of our simulation, there are 10,000 people. So we're going to model a small town here. Click OK. We're going to move on to births. Now, the units for births, remember, this is a flow, so it's a unit over time. We are ticking in years, and our population is measured in people. So the flow is in people per year. And the number of births are the birth rate times the population. You can go ahead and click them in from the causes window over here. And finally, deaths. Another mirror. People per year. And go ahead and click in death rate times population. Now that we have this, we can go ahead and clean up a few things just to make everything look nice. So let's go ahead and add in our polarities. So population to births. Right click on the arrow. The higher the population, the higher the births, positive. The higher the population, the higher the deaths. This is also positive. Higher the birth rate, higher the births, positive. Higher the death rate, higher the deaths, positive. We also can add polarities to flows. So the more births, the higher the population. The more deaths, the lower the population. So if we go ahead, let's make our loops a little wider here, just so we can add in a comment. There we go. We'll go up to comment tool here. Now, positive, positive. This is a reinforcing loop. And we're going to go ahead and make it our counterclockwise reinforcing loop. Shrink it down a little bit, fit it in there. And here, positive, negative, this is our balancing loop. So this is going to end up getting shrunk down right in here. There we go. Now you can see we need to move everything around a little bit just to make sure that all of these pluses can be seen easily, because we're getting a little tight here. So we can accomplish that by just making the population box a little bigger, dragging our arrows out a little bit, making sure that the faucet's there. And after playing with it for a little bit, we can get a much cleaner looking model. There we go. Let's mirror this out. You can play with this stuff for hours just to make sure that your graphic looks great. And there we go. Now, what we need to do to actually run this is first we need to save the model. And we're going to save that model as population. And I've already done a few tests of this, so I'm going to save it as population 1. And we want to go ahead and go up to the top here. We're going to name the run something like small town. All right. We can go ahead and click this run button, and that just ran the entire model, and it computed everything and output a small file somewhere on my computer under the name small town. Now we can go over to the left here. We can select population first. Click this graph pane, and it'll bring up a little window showing how our population has been growing from the year 2025 all the way up until 2125. So our little town of 10,000 will end up having a population of 192,000 by the year 2125. And if we were to go ahead, go back into our model, need to get equation tool, and let's raise the death rate from 0.2 to, let's say, 0.4, and we rename our run to small town high deaths. Run it again. Select population, grab the graph. You can now see a comparison between our two different runs, where we have what the small town will do with a lower death rate, 192,000, what the small town will do with a much higher death rate, only getting up to about 26,000 after 100 years. So that is how you build a stock and flow model, and you test different scenarios within a stock and flow model. Next time, we're going to go ahead and extend out this model to make it a little more complicated and start looking at aging chains, and I'll go ahead and see you then.